Welcome, everybody. It's Tim from SpaceNetTV. Today, we're going to count down Disney's top 6 biggest disasters of 2023. Join me, won't you? We start with layoffs. 2023 was a tough year to work for Disney in any capacity. Mounting losses from a series of box office disasters, a failing Disney Plus raking up losses in excess of $1 billion a quarter, ongoing legal battles with Florida that were not going well, and declines in domestic parks and resort attendance, generally a reliable source of income when all else is failing. This caused considerable panic because there was nothing firing on all cylinders except maybe the Disney Cruise Line. Then came round one of Nelson Peltz's attempt to throw Bob Iger to the curb. Peltz had a plan of cost savings and reorganization that made a lot of sense to investors. Out of sheer self-preservation, Iger adopted many of Peltz's talking points and called them his own. This led Iger to institute a massive cost savings effort to reduce expenses by $7 billion, mostly consisting of layoffs. And lay off we did. It was reported that we laid off approximately 7,000 employees in 2 waves. However, that's not an entirely accurate picture. And yes, there was 2 rounds of large-scale, highly publicized layoffs. But layoffs continued quietly in small numbers until it was nearly 10,000 people we let go by the end. We also ditched thousands of contractors, some onshore, but mostly from China, mostly Disney Plus platform developers. Now, I can't poke a lot of fun at this because a lot of good people, a lot of friends, lost their jobs. However, I will say this. This would have been a perfect opportunity for Disney to rid itself of many infected with the woke mind virus. Sadly, that wasn't being done. I wouldn't say that the firings were entirely driven on diversity, equity, and inclusion protocols, but if you were a straight white male, you had a higher risk of being dumped than Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriend on her 24th birthday. Box office bombs. While the layoffs were a hot topic in 2023, Disney's box office performance was anything but hot. 2023's rough year continued with a slate of high-profile flopageddons, starting with Ant-Man and the Wasp, continuing with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dementia, The Haunted Mansion, The Marvels, and finally ending with the abysmal Wish. Disney movie magic magically made over $2 billion disappear in a single year. Only Guardians of the Galaxy 3 managed to turn a very modest profit. Every other 2023 release failed to impress critics or the fans. While Disney still tried to use the pandemic to explain why people failed to show up at the box office, movies like Barbie, Super Mario Bros., Miles Morales Across the Spider-Verse, and Oppenheimer proved that people would still go to the theaters if they thought that going was worth their time, effort, and money to see something they'd enjoy. They decided nothing coming from Disney met any of those criteria. So ultimately, what went wrong with Disney's theatrical releases in 2023? Well, in my opinion, it was the company's focus on
the message.
The fact of the matter is, we all knew what was going on. It just wasn't being talked about. The activists infesting every level of Disney would make sure there was a huge backlash and repercussions if you spoke out against the woke agenda. They were really, literally just that entrenched in all levels from HR to the board, and they're still there. Not everyone, not even a majority, but just enough in very key positions and those who supported them who were loud and without any scruples. Even those who were perpetrating the messaging knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't care. Using Disney's cinematic platform to spread their woke message was all they cared about. The platform and what they perceived to be a captive audience who would see Disney's offerings no matter what is what mattered to them. Not telling a good story, not entertaining you, not providing parents with films that they could take their children to without worry, not in keeping with Disney's long-term values of a family-oriented brand. None of that entered into any decisions on the productions. The fact of the matter is Disney's corporate morality is no longer in alignment with the morality of the vast majority of their customers. Former customers. Disney finally had to admit as much in a recent SEC filing. Further, consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, including our efforts to achieve certain of our environmental and social goals, often differ wildly and present risks to our reputation and brands. So there it is, in black and white. Because this is a financial disclosure to the SEC, it had to be disclosed in their filings. So they admitted they knew exactly what they were doing, knew the financial and brand repercussions of doing so, and yet they did it anyway. And now they're paying the price. Boardroom battles. 2023 saw its share of corporate drama too. Earlier in the year, Disney found itself in the midst of a corporate showdown. On one side, we have the legendary Bob Iger, the man who brought us the Marvel Cinematic Universe and ruined it. And Star Wars sequel trilogy that I can't really talk about that anymore. Star Wars is just dead. On the other side, we have the tenacious Nelson Peltz, a billionaire investor with a penchant for shaking up companies, focusing them on their core offerings and returning them to profitability. The early fight saw Iger and Peltz go head-to-head over the future direction of Disney. Peltz worked the business media outlets with his 20-point plan for cost savings, refocus on core values and customers, and a return on investor value. Iger, however, outmaneuvered him by taking up most of those 20 points as his own during the Disney annual investors meeting in April, promising to cut $5 to $7 billion in expenses, mostly through layoffs, but also other cost savings measures, as well as focusing on quality, not quantity, of materials for both streaming and theatrical release. Peltz, losing much of his talking points and not having a significant enough stake in the company, around $1 billion at the time, to win in a proxy fight, backed down. However, he did not go away. Since then, Peltz has increased his stake in Disney to around $2.5 billion, and overall to $6.4 billion, or roughly around 70 million shares, aided by the former Marvel boss Ike Perlmutter, who granted him proxy to his shares. Peltz requested 2 board seats from Disney, one for himself and one for former Disney CFO Jay Russolo. Never met Jay. I've heard he's a nice guy, and probably would be a really good addition to the board since he is very intimate with a lot of the operations of Disney when it was at its peak. He was denied, setting up round 2 and a proxy fight to oust current leadership in favor of the new board of directors and a new CEO. Godspeed, Nelson. You know you already have my support and what meager shares I have to give you. DeSantis debacle. Disney's ongoing feud with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was a major story in 2023 and a major headache for Disney. A very public battle that left fans wondering if the happiest place on earth had simply become another woke political battleground. It all started when Disney decided to take a stance against the Florida Parental Rights and Education Act. This law restricted classroom gender and sex discussions in kindergarten through 3rd grade. After first abstaining from wading into Florida politics, then Disney CEO Bob Chapek was pressured into taking a stance. Chapek vowed to defeat the bill and defeat the re-election efforts of anyone who voted for it. In response, DeSantis retaliated by stripping Disney of its self-governing status over the Reedy Creek Improvement District, a 27,000-acre parcel of land near Orlando that is home to Disney's Walt Disney World parks and resorts. Now let's talk about how Bob Iger handled the situation once he took over from Chapek. In an attempt to slow the feud, Iger paid some lip service to appeasing DeSantis with promises of calming things down, more investment in Florida, and backing off targeting specific politicians. But it's since come out that Bob never even bothered so much as to call DeSantis to discuss the issue one-on-one. So it was just that, lip service. And we've seen little indication that he's calming things down either. By taking a side against parents, this really did not sit well with a vast majority of Disney's customers, many of whom have since moved on from Disney over this very issue. Disney broke their brand. They broke their generational bond with families who trusted Disney to provide good, wholesome, family-friendly entertainment without politics and without the sexualization of children. It's never smart for any company to alienate anyone over politics. This is not what the Disney brand was all about, nor should it be. By aligning itself with a very small percentage of the population against the majority who were your customers, Disney has backed itself into a corner. Well, so what does this mean for Disney long term? They lost control of the 27,000 acres of land around its Orlando resorts and parks. This is a major blow to the company that will have far-reaching consequences for its future growth, revenue, and development. Disney will now need to adhere to Florida law on how it manages its infrastructure, expands its parks, and operates its business. There was a little dust-up from some morons who tried to convince Disney to move Walt Disney World to a blue state. Yeah, sure, why not? Disney is larger than Manhattan. Practice moving Manhattan a couple of times first, then come and talk to us about moving Disney World. The streaming wars. Disney's streaming service, Disney Plus, had a rough year in 2023. The company struggled to keep up with the competition and left many fans wondering if Disney Plus was going to succeed. If you're old as dirt like I am, you've lived through a number of business wars. The cola wars, the telecom wars, the PC wars, smartphone wars, the late night wars, to name a few. Pitting corporations against each other for dominance in a coveted business segment. Now comes the streaming wars. The strategy behind this war was to be the last man standing, outlasting the competition through acquisition or attrition. Launching in 2019, Disney Plus seems singularly poised to win this war. We were absolutely convinced of it. Disney Plus offered an impressive collection of Disney classics, Pixar films, Marvel movies, Star Wars series, Star Wars movies, and National Geographic content. Our vast library appealed to a wide range of audiences, from families with young children to nostalgic adults and dedicated fans of various franchises. And in a war of attrition, Disney had the funds to wait out about everyone else, or so we believed. Losses were staggering to get the service launched and operational. Consumers have faced too many choices in streaming services to stay focused on any given brand, and the cost to subscribe to them all was more than many consumers simply wanted to bear. There was a lot of sign up for free trials to watch a particular series or movie and bail out before billing began. Content ruled. New content. Our extensive back catalog did little to hold the public's interest long term as we had hoped. And the new content, while starting off strongly, ultimately suffered the same fate as the theatrical releases. Poorly written, poorly shot, poorly acted, poorly executed, far too woke content. It did not draw in audiences and did not hold them. Cost. My God, the costs. Billions of losses since 2019 without a profit or even a break-even point in sight. The only bright spot was Hulu, which does operate at a profit, and most people don't even know Disney owns this property, but we do. This is why Disney Plus will be folded into Hulu and offered as a single service. Price point for the merged platforms isn't known at the moment, but there is sure to be a price increase. If Hulu manages to keep its membership intact faced with higher costs, that really remains to be seen. Iger has promised investors that streaming will become profitable in 2024. I cannot imagine what rabbit he thinks he has in his hat to pull out, because I highly doubt it. Disney has squandered its cash reserves on things we've already talked about in this entire video. It no longer has the money to wait the competition out to fail. Streaming, once seen as a jewel in Disney's crown, could well be its downfall. Theme park troubles. Disney's theme parks and resorts were not immune to the company's troubles in 2023 either. Attendance was down, significantly, during much of the non-holiday dates this year. Disney has faced criticism for its handling of issues from ride breakdowns to cost increases to sanitation to food quality. Perhaps that's what was causing the sanitation issues. Many just felt that the magic was gone, and by magic I think they meant was the loss of perks, the immaculate care of facilities, and the cast member interactions. The once bustling resorts in Disney World had trouble filling rooms of all tiers, not just the deluxe resorts, but all the way down to the value resorts. All suffered from vacancies, a lot of them. Customers complained about the rising cost per night, the parking charges, the loss of complimentary transportation to and from the airport, issues with housekeeping, and the number of restaurants and other services such as the dining plan that had yet to reopen or return. This prompted Disney to run some serious holiday promotions on vacation packages for this holiday season. I've never seen deep discounts. Hell, I've never seen discounts on Disney World at Christmas time. That's a sign of some major desperation on behalf of the parks and experiences people. Many of the discounts are aimed at families. Disney is trying to re-engage with families, not by dropping all the woke shit, but by throwing them a free dining plan. Luring families back is a big push at the moment. Disney adults do not generate the revenue that families do. Parks and Experiences is keenly aware that issues with brand decline for families and that it's costing them a lot of revenue. Now, from the numbers that I've seen and the crowds I've observed, these discounts are having an effect and are being successful, but they're still nowhere near the highs in attendance that were once a common occurrence. Why the downslide in attendance? You'll get a lot of reasons why, but prevailing data comes from three main reasons: cost, quality, and guest experience. Disney has been steadily raising prices on gate admission, merchandise, food, and other items because historically they could do so with little repercussion. The crowd still came. They've spoken openly about wanting to price out the undesirables in the parks in favor of high spenders, particularly taking shots at annual pass holders, for whom the analysts say just don't spend as much as do the day pass guests. Guess who got locked out of a lot of park days by the reservation system despite your having paid for an annual pass and told you had few blackout dates? Lawsuits over this practice are still being litigated. The cost of the much-despised Genie Plus keeps rising. Disney implemented a new variable pricing scheme with Genie Plus that raises the price per person per day based on how many have purchased it during the course of that day. I've recently seen prices hit as high as $39 per guest per day in addition to your park tickets. Many complained about the overall lack of quality compared to years past. Guests have noticed everything from park cleanliness, attraction venue maintenance, broken rides, loss of immersive theming in favor of cheap, bland refurbishments. The list goes on of the complaints that people are having about a general difference in how Disney is being operated now than it has in the past. Still, others insist that Disney has alienated families with a political agenda with which many just don't want to expose their children. They're turning to alternatives such as Universal or SeaWorld when visiting Orlando, or just not coming to Florida at all and finding other venues and places to go. Anyway, that was my take on the dismal year Disney had. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I do try to read and respond to all of them. I love hearing from you. I'll be back soon with another video. Until then, you take care. Bye for now.